You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show. My name is Clancy Overall, editor of the Batuta Advocate, and I'm joined by Errol Parker, editor-at-large. Are you excited to get all that tax fraud over with, Errol?
Look, it's not a tax return unless there's a bit of grey area tax fraud. I think one good way to get audited in this country is to present an honest tax return to the federal government. You don't want to give them too much money because what are they going to spend it on? Another submarine, another pay rise for some public servant grub.
Yep.
You know. So look, I think just as long as it's in, good spirits, a bit of tax fraud is always welcome in this country.
Yeah, and another good way to get audited is to make these admissions on a podcast that's listened to by quite a lot of people in Canberra. So please be kind to those listening. We love you. And Morrison's gone. You guys should be cheerful right now. Your jobs are safe. Leave us alone. Anyway, I'll get on with the podcast now. As our listeners would be aware by now, this podcast tends to go through running themes. During the election, as we just mentioned, we did something like 15 interviews with different politicians. We had our office rammed with puffer vest staffers. We spoke to a whole lot of people that were involved in the dark arts of federal politics, a whole lot of evil people, soulless people, cold, dead eyes.
Lots of trade unionists in $700 riding boots.
Yep. Trade unionists with jet skis, all the toys, and, all the greenies who, at the end of the day, are just as racist as the rest of them. But, from there we kind of moved into rock stars. We had a lot of musos coming in. We went straight into the Hoodoo Gurus, Polish Club, and Troy Cassadaly last week. Well, today I'm excited to have the opportunity to mix it up again and interview two people who make a living telling stories on the stage and on the screen. And I'm excited for this interview because we don't get many actors or thespians or directors or performers on this podcast, which is a real shame because they play such a very important role in both our culture and discourse. In fact, some would say that you guys are the real frontline workers. Thank you for joining us today, Shari Sebbens and Meyne Wyatt.
No worries. Thanks for having us. Hell of an intro.
Now, you two have spent the first half of this year touring the kind of critically acclaimed play. Touring, is that the right word for a play?
Yeah. We took it to more than one place. So, in theatre, that's touring.
Yeah. Now, that was City of Gold, written by you and starring you, Meyne, and directed by you, Shari. We'll get into kind of discussing what is required to put on a stage production of that scale in a bit, but I kind of want to talk about the two performers sitting in front of us. Meyne from Kalgoorlie, Shari from Darwin, both graduates of NIDA, or as they call it in Batuta, Clown School.
I thought that Clown School was the Sandstone University in the heart of town.
Yep, in the old city district, Batuta's Polytechnical College that has a clown school there.
If your university has any sandstone in it, it's not a university, it's a fucking country club.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Get out of there, kids, if you're listening. We do want to talk about the pathways, I'm guessing, to get into this industry, they weren't handing out drama school flyers at Darwin High.
No, they were getting Aaron Pedersen to come and do talks to us instead.
Oh, right.
Yes, no, they weren't. It was... God, are we asking for my origin story?
What kick-started you?
Well, if I trace the root of the seed of thespian dreams, it would have been when I was 8 years old, and Jimmy Chai, who is one of my uncles, not Blood Way, but Respect Way. Brand New Day had been touring around Australia and came to Darwin, and basically I just saw a bunch of people that looked like my family on stage. It sounded like my family because they were my family, throwing cherry ripes out into the audience, and I was like, I'm sold, man. And then I started youth theatre classes when I was 11 because my best friend did it, and at 13 I was like, Mum, I want to be an actor, which is, probably not what an Indigenous mother of 6 wants to hear from her 5th child. Yeah. But she was actually incredible and was just like, all right, go for it.
And how about you, Meyne?
I think when I was about 9 or 10, I think I'd always, in the back of my mind, I'd always wanted to be an actor or, the weird kid running around the backyard talking to himself. But then my uncle was like, I want to put him in. And my uncle was an actor and he went to Whopper, one of the first Indigenous students at Whopper 30 years ago. He put me in a domestic violence ad. Yeah. And so I was the young kid that was going, stop it, Dad, stop it. Right. And then
Baptism of fire.
Well, funny enough, he gave me a note while I was performing the ad, and I was like, I don't think my character would do that. So, so I think I was being a little shit from day one. But, I think that from then on, it kind of was the bug bit me, or whatever you say.
Now, Shari, before you became a household name, you were in quite a hit movie, The Sapphires, for those listening at home. What was it like to launch straight into the world of international film?
It was mad. I guess it's kind of weird, though, because you start at the top, so everything from there is downhill. And it's been a real, equalizing experience. No, it was insane. I remember reading the script and just being kind of so enamored with it, taken by it, and it was the first time I'd seen, a fair-skinned blackfellow, that a character that had my kind of identity in that way, not stolen generation, because that's not my story at all, and I can't lay any claim to that. But it was pretty amazing. But I do remember when we were on the red carpet in Cannes, and Deborah Mailman and Chris O'Dowd and Tori Kittles, who's in the film as well, they were like, "Oh my God, this is the craziest red carpet we've ever been on, right?" And they were like, "Right, Shari?" And I was like, "This is the first red carpet I've ever been on." So it was kind of like, oh, well, whatever I get to do from here on out is a bonus.
Yeah. You can't, eh?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people sitting at home, probably you two when you were kids looking at actors, kind of take for, you guys did then, I'm sure you've learned now, but I feel sorry for actors because everyone, even their mates and family, think they're living the life, but it's pretty grueling. Like, I mean, cool, staying in a hotel, let's not play down how luxurious that is.
Yeah.
But let's not play down how old that gets.
Yeah.
Totally.
Especially when you're jet lagged and you're moving around here and you're lonely and you hit the ground with that.
I only stopped working at JB Hi-Fi 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So it's, I think being an actor in Australia specifically is quite a balance. But yeah, I mean, it is. It's your family thinks, I mean, all my nieces and nephews certainly think I'm a millionaire. And, I'm not.
Ask Auntie Shari for a loan.
No, don't. No, look, I mean, the hotels, all that stuff is great, but I think the tiring thing is constantly grinding at it, whether it's theatre, because you can't live in one unless you sign your life away to a home and away contract. You're really just trying to maintain the gigs. So it's, we're very fortunate in that we get to play on both stage and screen, which helps fill out our year quite quickly and heavily. Yeah,
it's out of necessity, really, because you got to go where the work is, and sometimes you have those dry patches, and every actor does. Yeah. That you have to fulfill that, fill that time up in some way or form, and then you realise that you start drifting down another path or creating another avenue for yourself because, really, it's just out of paying the bills, So Shari's gone into directing, I've gone into writing. It's one of those things where, acting can't just be the one string in your bow, I suppose.
Going to cast a wider net.
Yeah, for sure.
More options. Now, Meyne, I just want to start. You guys had, before City of Gold, the different iterations of it, there was one where you were starring in it, Shari.
Yeah, 2019, I played the character of the sister.
Yeah, and then moved into director. But did you work together on Redfern Now before that, or did you work together before at all? Because I know you've both got Redfern Now credits.
Yeah, well, we...
Actually, I've cameoed in the Sapphires.
Oh.
Yeah. They cameo.
Yeah, I cameoed in the Sapphires.
Yeah, so we've done a movie and a TV show together, but we've never done a scene together.
Yeah, we were meant to be in the Redfern Now episode together.
That's
in
right.
that first season, but
That's
then
right.
what happened? I couldn't do it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then I
thank
did the
goodness,
second season.
frankly.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it would have been weird. No, but we did actually, our little theatre nerd stories, 2010, we did a play together at NIDA.
But we didn't actually do any scenes together again.
No, yeah, we've done...
we've been swapping past
we just
each other the
don't
whole
talk
time.
to each other when we work together.
It's in our contracts.
Now, prior to working together, prior to Redfern Now, I guess, or maybe even during, Meyne, you kind of are a product of another, aside from NIDA, another Australian celebrity factory in the shape of Ramsay Street.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? I mean, I'm sure it's the same as a lot of TV shows you work on, but you were the first black man on Neighbours. Was that like a bigger job than the actual character? Like, there's a duty, or not a duty, but it's something that's burdened on you. Like, you got to carry a bit.
I think there's a certain responsibility when you, because I think at that point they were just about to go into the 30th year of the show while I was there, and so I think they saw it as a big step at the time of, you know, having an Aboriginal actor on the show full time as a main character on the show, because I think originally they did have Justine Saunders and Tony Briggs, but they were all guest roles on the show, and you know, there for a period of time, and then I became the main cast on the show. But yeah, I think definitely. Look, they threw a lot of things at my my character because he was gay. He was also...
They got a twofer there, gay and black.
And he had PTSD because he was a veteran in Afghanistan. So,
He was a gay veteran.
Yeah. And I ended up burying Susan on the show. So that was my claim to fame on the show. But look, I think more than anything... The other people that had auditioned for the role actually weren't just Indigenous actors, so I think they wanted to cast a net, but I really think in the end they wanted an Indigenous actor on the show. Yeah. And I had a great time while I was there, and I made a lot of friends and stuff like that. And then, like I think it's obviously an institution, and it's limited in some of its, you know, storytelling capability, but it's what you sign up for. So I did my time, as they say, and then they wanted me to stay on for longer, but I had done, like I said, done my time.
Yeah, right. And then what I want to ask is, when did you guys start developing or start working on these other disciplines? You know, the directing and then the writing, or... Is City of Gold your first crack at something like this? Yeah,
for sure. And another thing that kind of came out of necessity again, because I was going for roles after I'd finished Neighbours that it was the run-of-the-mill Aboriginal angry man thing, and I was kind of over that, and I was sick of playing those particular roles and going up for them, and I just started to, you know, put pen to paper and just threw, you know, a couple of scenes together and went, hey, this is... You know, to a couple of theatre companies, I went, this is what I'm thinking. And then, you know, they went, well, here's some money, go and write a play. So then City of Gold came out of that kind of thing. And yeah, it's out of knowing that I've always wanted to do that, but you don't know that you want to do something until you do it kind of thing. So I think it came out of that for me.
Yeah. I've just got a big mouth in rehearsal rooms, and, you know, the nature of what we do as Aboriginal actors. 90% of the work we do is New Australian work because we don't revisit old texts. We very rarely revisit old texts that aren't black, so it's even more rare to revisit a black play. So yeah, 98% of the work I'd say I do as both of us in theatre is new work. So you kind of, you know, I spent the first few years in the industry just silent and listening, and then I got an understanding, I guess, of dramaturgy and narrative and structure and stuff like that, and started opening my mouth more in rehearsals and development. And it was on Battle of Waterloo at STC that the director sort of pulled me aside and said, when are you going to start directing? And I said never, because I shit myself and it terrifies me, and it still does. But then Sydney Theatre Company were very, very generous in offering me the Richard Wyatt Fellow, which is a program of theirs to support emerging directors. It's a sort of pathway into the industry, I guess, in the company. Yeah, and it's so really I've only been doing it 2 years, but it's been a chaotic 2 years. Yeah. It's showing no signs of slowing down, which is awesome.
What drew you both to come to Sydney? Aside from NIDA, I mean, like, you're from our nation's prosperous West, where they do have a very famous school for actors, musicians. Was there something about coming to Sydney that you wanted to do, or like everything else, was it just a means to an end?
Well, we both did the Aboriginal Theatre course at WAPO. It's the only mainstream tertiary drama school that offers a certificate in Aboriginal theatre, and it's an extremely useful pathway for young Indigenous artists who are thinking about a career in acting or theatre or, you know, screen acting or anything. I actually think I did like a little mental math thing in my head, and I think out of the last 13 or 12 blackfellas to go to NIDA, 9 of them went to WAPA first.
Yeah, right.
So it's a little pipeline. Look, I auditioned for WAPA, and I'm still waiting to hear about whether I got in or not. They actually never told me. And I was such a stubborn head. I didn't pack my bags for Sydney or anything. And then I got a letter from NIDA saying 2 weeks' time. And I was like, oh, shit, all right. I remember graduating from NIDA and my mum was like, well, you coming home now? And I was like, I can't. There's nothing happening in Darwin. So, it is definitely...
Sydney's where the work is.
Yeah, Sydney's where the
for
work
sure.
is. Yeah.
The centre of the universe, isn't it?
For sure.
I kind of want to ask, because you had such similar pathways in, is it a bit like other industries where, you're a bit ahead, Shari, you're a bit ahead of Meyne? Is there big raps on this young bloke at Whopper who might be coming to NIDA? Like, did you know about each other?
I knew.
Seen each other or worked together.
The Black Grapevine absolutely works that way. I knew that Meyne was coming from Whopper because Rick Brayford, the course head of course, told me. So it was a bit like, you got this young fella coming over, look after him. You got to look after each other. And we were quite lucky, actually. There was one year at NIDA when I was there. Miranda Tapsell and Travis Cardona were the year above me, and then the year below me was Meyne and Guy Simon, and Ben Gratz was in the movement course. So there was 6 of us in total, which was kind of unheard of for NIDA to have that many black people in its corridors. So we were pretty fortunate. We had a great year there. We had each other to count on when it got to... to racism-y you do. And we all, we still do kind of... I think I sent a message just a few weeks ago going like, all right, who's out there? We're always keeping tabs on who's around, who's coming up, and who we've got to keep an eye out for. So it's a supportive industry. My biggest thing is let's not do to each other what the white fellas do to each other, which is compete and, tear each other down and apart. So,
and gossip like crazy over a crisp glass of Chardonnay at a dinner party. Have you heard about him?
Yeah, for sure.
So do you reckon there is an element to being a black actor in Australia where, it's this thing of ours, you've got this kind of network, this kind of different kind of opportunities, and then you've got this other network operating above or under.
Absolutely. Yeah. We get an audition, you hear about a project, the first thing you do is text the other mob and find out, make sure that they're across it, get them onto their agents. What can you do to get can your agent help out? Things like that. I'm sure there's times where we're like, no, this is mine.
And then you don't get it.
So this kind of industry within an industry, or this community within an industry, did you, when you were putting together City of Gold, you'd drawn straight on that, Meyne?
Yeah, I think there were different actors that I wanted to be a part of the show. And, we were lucky to get enough to get Shari and then my cousin Matt, just nepotism. Yep. But he was from Kalgoorlie, and the play was set in Kalgoorlie, and I don't think he'd ever gotten a fair shake, really. So I kind of was like, I think this is a good actor that needs to be seen, kind of thing. So he ended up, coming in, stepping into the role. And then, it was about out of, because we were working with Queensland Theatre Company and in Sydney. So you have to get particular actors from particular states, just the way the industry works. Yep. And which is a good thing, because then you're seeing talent from...
so it's not a Sydney kind of...
for sure. And it can very much become that, and then you're missing out on talent from around the country. So it's actually a good thing. So, and I think particularly with that particular play, that we got to work with each other, that, as we'd said before, we hadn't actually had that opportunity to work with each other on stage together, So, it was a lot of fun. And, there was a couple of shows that... it went off the rails.
I want to talk about the off nights. Everyone's got an off night somewhere. You could be. It depends. It doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter if it's work or it's family. You go to see family. You go to stay with your family for 2 weeks. There's one night there where it's
like just as long as it happens in somewhere like Toowoomba.
I think that was our off night on our national tour. I walked out into the Jeffrey Rush Theatre in Toowoomba. I walked out and said,
my God.
G'day, Townsville.
Well, and it was the evening of the Melbourne Cup. So we were going out there, and there's just these blokes in stripy shirts who are barely keeping it together. Eyes rolling around in their heads.
They were asleep by the end of it. That's it. Good night. With stage, like, this is all hands on deck. This isn't like... I know TV's grueling, and I know you can be away for months at a time, but you've got the whole team, or at least a template of a team, interchanging a few people state by state. What is that like? And I also, with a play like this, City of Gold, which kind of first came to national attention. If you hadn't already seen it in your first iteration, you had a monologue on ABC's Q&A at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, which just from that, I'm not sure how long that goes for, 6 minutes?
About 4
minutes. Yep. Looking at that, I'm thinking, this is such a deeply personal and emotional and heavy thing to deliver to the world on TV. I mean, it goes viral, which is probably less taxing of you that it just gets to keep playing on the internet rather than doing it every night in different cities. What is it like on the road with such heavy subject matter?
Oh, look, I feel like no matter what, when I came into doing the first season or the second season, I mentally prepare myself 6 months in advance, just knowing that I have to go, because the play is such a personal play for me, because it's about losing my dad, and subject matter, we start talking about Aboriginal deaths in custody and stuff like that. So I think I've always in the back of my head knowing, this is where I have to go, so I have to prepare myself that in advance. But in the end, I think you come to a point where you're playing a role like anything else, and you're a character, and sometimes you just got to go there technically, and make sure I got to hit the performance there technically every night, and sometimes that can be a good shield almost. So you're not making sure that you're looking after yourself, and each theatre company that we worked with had a counsellor on board, so in case you needed to chat to someone about that. But I think more than it was pretty tiring, because with theatre it is unfortunately overworked, underpaid, but it's just the nature of the beast a little bit. But in the same token, there's a lot of opportunity in the play where we get to fuck around and crack some jokes and stuff. So
pressure valve.
Just so you have a balance there, I suppose.
I think there's also a resilience that blackfellas come in with, living your whole life as a blackfella in this country. You kind of come in knowing what stories are coming at you. I mean, for me, especially the first time around, it was actually the play that I think I'd done that felt the most truthful to my experience. Meyne and I are both members of the DDC, the Dead Dad Club, and he wrote this incredible monologue, and it's a not a too long a piece, but it was quite confronting for me, because I was like, oh, this is someone tapping into my grief, not my black grief or my my black trauma, but actually just my grief as a human. And so it took me a while to kind of work into that and be able to deliver that every night without getting caught up in it. But also, we are just a bunch of dickheads. We like being idiots before the show goes on and as soon as it finishes. So it's almost like I always say with black work, as deep as it is on stage and dark and unsettling or confronting, is as mad as it is backstage. Jokes and the what you have to do to keep everybody buoyant and alive and get them through the 5-week run. But also, like Meyne, I think you had maybe 4 scenes off that entire play. Like, it's also just a taxing technical piece of theatre for Meyne.
Another question I want to ask is, you're talking about how what you're doing is telling black stories, black people telling black stories, which I'm sure you've been involved in many productions where that wasn't the case. There were still black stories, though.
King Lear. Can we just rewrite a few things? Scottish King out.
Or just, white directors, white writers have this great idea, but for whatever reason, their great idea keeps going into this experience that they haven't had, and it's based around these characters that they've never met, and, it's a bit different. City of Gold is not that.
Yeah.
But what I do want to ask is, what other stories would you guys like to see? Aside from your own and your community and the stories that have been told here, City of Gold is set in Kalgoorlie, a town that doesn't get much cultural representation on the screen. You hear about it a lot during elections, but you don't really get to hear those stories from Kalgoorlie. So you've got like a rural thing, and not just a small town. We love it. Australia loves a good outback thing, but it's like Kalgoorlie's a pretty big town in the scrub. And then we get to hear from, the black voices within that town and surrounds. What else do you think could be told in Australia? And, not stories could easily be stories that you have nothing to do with. There is a whole lot of stories not being told. Yeah. Have you seen like some talent or some, at least archetypes and different yarns that you think could be brought to the fore?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, God, you find out a little bit about each city or town or country in this land. And what was the thing I was reading about? The 2 fellas that got in that canoe and saved 30 people over 2 days or something, or 60 people over 2 days at the Gundagai floods. Like, you're like, that's a friggin' yarn I'd love to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, historically there's so many, but there's also this kind of cool, I think what's really exciting, and, you know, you can't help but look to America because it saturates us, but you look overseas and it's like, you know, you get Issa Rae with Insecure, or you get Michaela Cole with Chewing Gum, or I May Destroy You, or you get Childish Gambino, Donald Glover with Atlanta, and it's like the future of storytelling, when it remains in control of the people who are telling the stories, the community it's representing, that's when it gets exciting, I think.
Yeah, and you get some young writers who come through, like, you know, all my friends are racist,
Enoch
you know.
Maloney, yeah.
Enoch and, you know, and Davey in that show as well. Like, you get some young voices that you show a particular point of view of, like, Aboriginal people that you go, I haven't seen this before, and this is fresh, and I don't know how to write that story. Yeah. So I'm glad I'm fucking seeing it, you know. Yeah. And there are some things where I'm excited by things I don't know. That's more interesting to me than seeing something that I've seen a million times, you know. And I think that kind of stuff is... I would never be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So I admire the fact that I'm getting to see something that I've never seen, or I can't write myself. So that's exciting to me.
There's this film that's just been released, which is an all first time of production, called Neverland. And it's like a Polynesian Western Sydney crime thriller. Yeah. Bit of Two Hands, bit of like that kind of bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Have money that they need, you know, they need to recoup their losses. It's great. And I went and saw it, and, you know, they've got all that drill music too. So it's like a bit of a rap musical too. Yeah. But then they had this bloke introducing, you know, the night. He was Lebanese, and he said, I think this is so great for the Polynesian community because, you know, the Lebanese community, we too feel underrepresented in screen. And as he said that, all the Lebanese blokes in the crowd yelled, mate, we've got the combination. We've got the combination. It's one of those things where it's like every single Lebanese Australian has seen the combination. Yeah. And, you know, there's probably 10, 20 combinations you can do. It doesn't always have to be crime as well, mind you. But there is that thing happening in Australia, and we see it in census, where actually maybe... the surfy dramas aren't really representative of the entire nation anymore.
Look, I don't think I know any surfers. You know?
Who can surf?
Tim Winton.
Well, that speaks volumes.
He must have ripped abs, Tim Winton.
Is there a medium that you prefer to tell your stories in? I mean, like, you've done, you know, like plays, television, and big movies, small movies. Is there something that you like prefer doing?
Oh, whatever pays the most, generally. No, look, the theatre nerd in me will always love theatre. I think there's a process that you don't get with stage and that you don't get with screen, television or film, which is the collaborative nature of it. You get 4 weeks to rehearse on theatre. You know, film, you might get maximum 1 week. Yeah. You might get to meet an actor before you do a scene with them. You might get 2 days. Who knows? I really love that for that reason. But, you know, there's just something about where film and screen can take you.
I think the mediums, each particular have a way of telling a story. In theatre, you got to hit the person in the back row, and your performance has to be a little bit larger than life, just so everyone's being able to see and identify what you're doing on stage, kind of thing. But you also have a little bit more control when you're the actor, because there's no stop, there's no cut. So you're continuously performing, and you know, if you don't like the note that the director's given you, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll just do it the way I'm going to.
Tell me more.
But on film, the scope with which you can tell the story, you can leave location and you can go back and forth, and that kind of thing with film and television is interesting because you have to strike a chord visually, and I think on stage it's about the word, you know. So in that way, look, I have a lot of fun on the stage because I can be as big as I want to be and as stupid as I want to be, but then on film, you also have a camera there that reads every single movement. That an eyebrow twitch is fucking reads.
And he's got an eyebrow, this bloke.
Yeah.
I saw it in the Archibald. But we haven't even gone there yet. Archibald finalist, Meyne Wyatt.
But yeah, you know, so like there's those things where it's just a different medium, that it's a different way of storytelling. Yeah. But yes, film and television pays a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you look after your soul by doing, you know, some stage and some theatre, and if you want a car with airbags,
you want a car.
But also film and television, you get a bigger audience.
Yeah.
You know, and you're able to hit people that come and see a Sydney theatre production. You know what I mean? And so that's also a thing that, you know.
Yeah,
Totally.
accessibility.
Yeah.
I kind of want
Yeah.
to talk about that too,
Accessibility.
because you guys you've got the whole story. You know, the story's accessible. You guys have kind of put yourself in that industry and put your stories in there and put them out there. Where do you see the breakdown there? Because at the end of the day, you ask any suburban or rural bloke your age, and this is just for the blokes mostly, but their idea of theatre is world wrestling. You know what I mean? Like that's and let's say they have been introduced to some very Shakespearean themes over the years and storylines, but you know, it does miss a lot of the people, and unfortunately, it misses a lot of people who need to see your play.
Yep.
I think, look, theatre is a very, unfortunately, elitist kind of way of storytelling because it's not accessible in that it costs a lot of money, unfortunately. And you get a lot of people who, you know, are older generation and ticket prices are high, and some of the theatres aren't very accessible for people living with disability as well. So I feel like a lot of changes need to be made in those areas for theatre.
I think there's a great reckoning to be had after the last 2 years about accessibility in the arts, and you know, what do we learnt very quickly just how easy it is to cast something into somebody's computer screen or lounge room because they cannot get to a building. And I think that's something that's fallen by the wayside. We've forgotten, you know, we dropped that in a minute once we were all allowed back in. And it's complex, like, you know, with black theatre, because theatre is elite, but black theatre really started from a place of, you know, the National Black Theatre started by Uncle Bob Mazza and Gary Foley Mob in the 60s, 70s, sorry. Started because they were activists and protesters who realised that politicians weren't turning up to protests. And if we put on a play and invite them to an opening night,
all their wives will come.
then they'll be front row because, you know, pollies love a free ticket
Their
and
wives
a
will
free
drag
drink.
them there because this is an industry. This is a social thing that we need to do. It's
Absolutely.
like,
So, yeah, I mean, the roots of it for Aboriginal mob protest, really.
Yeah.
That's what it remains still, you know, no matter the story, the very existence of it is political. But yeah, I think, you know, there's been conversations for decades now about a national black theatre body and what that could look like. But I think everyone's kind of going, well, if we have one, then all the companies can stop producing black work. And it's like, that's not the answer either. No. Every company still needs to produce the black work. And we actually just need more companies to produce more work because, these kids in Darwin or, you know, in Darwin, a capital city, like they're not getting anything. So the kids in bloody, you know, Ramangini aren't getting anything, getting even less. It's tough. I think National Theatre in the UK is doing, you know, like they're doing a lot of filming and they've found this kind of niche model vehicle to get their plays to more audiences, which I think is working. And that's probably the next stage for us here in Australia, I reckon.
We've spoken around the story in City of Gold, and I haven't discussed it too much because I don't know, is this the end of it? I didn't even want to go down that path and kind of spoil the story for those who hadn't seen it. Have you retired this play? You've done Perth and Sydney.
I think on the last week I kind of said that this was going to be the last time I was going to do it to sell tickets.
Look, just that's what John Farnham's 30 years.
The last time.
The last time
Final
he'll leave his
goodbye.
Whispering Jack. Pile in.
Look, I think the show has been a taxing kind of show, and I'll never say never, but I think if the right zeros are at the end of the check, I think turning it into maybe a film or a television show is probably a next step.
And it's less taxing. Like, you know, you get to do that one amazing performance.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't have to do that every night in every city.
Yeah, so I think that's an avenue that it could be going down.
Ham, streamers, ham.
Well, like it would bring it to a much wider audience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's quite hard to, as you did say, to get into a theatre.
Yeah.
Everyone can watch it at home if they've got, you know, internet and television.
Yeah. So I think that's where it could be going down. I keep saying could. For me, the industry, the way it works is like it's not done until you're there on premiere or something. You know what I mean? So
Especially after
wrapped.
COVID. Especially after COVID, no one's planning anything.
Yeah.
It's like we had this cool conversation the other day, but now we're in lockdown for 4 months because of fucking baby cron or whatever we're doing.
So yeah, look, I think that's something that's an exciting way of looking at where they could go, and I think there's a lot of things that you could explore from the play that originally, because we cover a lot of themes in the show, but City of Gold had been a vehicle for me to be able to show what I can do, and I'd never been given that opportunity before, so I just made, you forced the door open, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, it's a hell of a production, and congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
I do want to ask now about the blooper reel. Tell us, what nights were the funniest? When did COVID come into play? Tell us about it. Did any light fall from the roof?
I think in the original show, in the original production in 2019, I think we corpsed a few times.
Corpse?
Corpse. Yeah, so corpsing is when...
No, that was the Kalgoorlie night. We had all your family.
Yeah.
Ooh,
We had
that's
a Griffin, which is, a 110-seat theatre, not even.
Smaller as
than
big as
that.
this room.
Yeah. And about, 20 of, 13 to 20 of Meyne's family were there.
From Kalgoorlie.
So literally every single
line.
The name of a street, the name of a shop, everything just got the biggest black laugh and response. And the white fellas were probably quietly shitting themselves in the
Well,
audience.
they were laughing at the black fellas laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they felt way out of the loop.
Yeah.
Is that the theatre that's up near the Coke's on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the
I
cross,
understand
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Tiny little space. And we actually got to the final scene.
Yeah.
Moments before, I guess, one of the most devastating moments in the climactic moments in the play. Meyne corpsed a line, and I said my line, and then Meyne just looked at me. And then his family started laughing behind me. And then he looked at me, and I went, it's your line. And then I think we laughed for like a minute. It took us about a minute.
And the audience
to recover.
just started pissing themselves, so we're all just on stage just like biting our lips and,
Well, that was leading into...
The climax.
biggest
to
moment
the climax of the play. To the climax of the
so
play.
the audience went on the most insane emotional roller coaster. They'd fully opened their heart chakras. Everybody was laughing, and then we absolutely just destroyed them. About 45 seconds later.
Yeah.
But God, this time, we were in Perth, and we'd arrived in Perth, and COVID hadn't happened. So we were suddenly, it was like going into a time-space portal, like literally, these mob just had no idea what was coming at them. And we knew, we were kind of like, we were even hesitant about, do we go? What do we do? And they came in, sort of gripping their hat in their hands like, oh, we're down to 50% capacity. And we were like, yeah, that's life. That's been the last 2 years for us. And so... it kind of took a hit that way, but, we packed out the 50% capacity audiences. And actually, oh, God, the biggest glaring COVID was we actually didn't get to do our final night here in Sydney because Meyne got COVID.
I got COVID on the final day.
So on the Friday, the second last night, I got called in to rehearse in an actor, one of the white fellas who's got 3 scenes in the play. So I came in and rehearsed him, and then Meyne sat there on the couch and went, I'm going to have COVID tomorrow. And I was like, don't say it. And he was like, Miles just spits in my face for the first 15 minutes of the play. And then I got a message the next morning at 10 a.m. And, one actor with 3 scenes, it took us half a day to rehearse in. Meyne is the, entirety of the show just about. And we were like, oh, well.
Have a day off.
Have a day off, you mom. So the last 2 shows, actually, we didn't get to do them.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually as... I didn't feel as sad about it as it was just like, oh, well, that's it kind of thing. And
we had a good run.
Yeah.
And the audiences are used to it.
Yeah.
The audiences,
Yep.
if they had tickets, they know how the world is now.
Yeah. And we did have an actor the night before come in last minute, and that was
we had a guy on stage.
It was
he had
hilarious
a script on his
because
hand.
he was deer on the headlights because he was so good at the rehearsal, and then he got on stage and he was like, oh shit! And so I was like, move over here.
He had 20 minutes to learn an entire play.
So that was hilarious.
I guess, because you had to miss your last 2 shows, that's almost an omen that this thing has to continue in one way or another. City of Gold. Congratulations, guys, and thanks for coming in. We'd love to have you back in here to find out what you're working on next.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having
Thanks
us.
for having us.